it kind of even goes back to crossing the line at the Olympics. Obviously being 12th, that's awesome. But like being like, oh, I wish I had been 10th. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, if I was 10th, I'd have been like, oh, I really wish I was top 5. There's like this inability to be like satiated or satisfied also that comes with it, with that curiosity. I think it's just never ending.
But from the version of Dakotah of 2023 and 2020 and, all the way back, what's been that, consistent component that has enabled that healthy training to occur? Why do you think you've been able to stack the brick after brick after brick?
I think, I'm not going to be too naive here. I do think there's an element of luck to it. I am just not somebody who seems to get injured. And when I do, it's not super serious injuries. I don't deal with a lot of bone issues that cause me a lot of time off, again, knocking on wood. I would say I'm really cognizant of fueling correctly, making sure I'm getting enough calories when I'm marathon training. I've seen way too many athletes, maybe just under fuel a little bit, just let it not be top of mind. And you see some injuries that come with that. And I think that's really heartbreaking because that seems really preventable. But also, I'd say I'm really good about taking care of my body and listening to my body. I just told Lundo, my coach, today, I was like, okay, after New York, I can tell my body needs more than a week, which is our standard time off. And I'm definitely looking forward to having a full 14 days off. And, I think we talked about this on the panel. Molly said, like, if you don't take those planned breaks, you're going to have some unplanned breaks. And so just like allowing my body to recover after these builds and have the time to just, not run is really important also.
Yeah. And it's always awesome to hear professional athletes talking about the intentionality around downtime post race. What are those next few days post marathon like for you? Do you reverse taper? Is it, what does that look like on the other side of race day?
Honestly, next 7 days are absolutely no running. Like not even a step. Maybe I like to play like pickleball. So like a little, sprint here or there is like the very most I do, but it's very intentionally not working out for at least 4 days for sure. And then maybe I'll go for a bike ride for fun or something, but nothing is intense and nothing is structured for at least 7 days.
Nothing like the 27 miles you did in Boulder a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely not. But that was a confidence building long run for sure. I was a zombie the rest of the day, but it was fun.
Dakotah went and ran 24 miles after a shakeout run with fleet feet and you started that part at like 10 a.m.?
Something like that. And it was a particularly warm day. And I was definitely dehydrated by the end.
She got to experience just how dry the Colorado air can be.
Yeah, definitely. I was telling my coaches, like, I don't ever take fluids with me. I very rarely take fluids with me, I should say. And so I thought the 10 ounces I had would be more than enough, but I made Montana stop at a gas station and get me some water with like 8 miles to go because I felt like a cactus. I was dry.
So how do you take a session that's unexpectedly hard and use that? I mean, you still ran 24 miles. So that probably was, maybe that was, intimidating going into it, but just based on the distance. But how do you pull on a session like that was unintentionally hard and draw from something like that on race day? Or do you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's typically 24 miles around that pace shouldn't be too hard for me. But of course, I was at altitude. It was dry. So there was a moment where I kind of got snappy with Montana and I had to say, oh, I'm not crabby. I'm just like, I'm in the pain cave. Like I'm like suffering right now. And I think what I like to do is I looked back on that. I felt like I was in a deep hole, but I survived. I finished the run. And on race day, I'm going to be in a pain cave. I'm going to find a hard patch of the marathon. And just like that long run, I'm going to survive. It kind of ebbs and it flows. I had moments that were really hard and moments after I got that water from the gas station that I felt really good. And just like, just in the long run, it's going to happen in the marathon where I feel good and when I don't.
Yeah, I can't remember who was saying it in the panel. It might have been Rory, but something along those similar lines. Like, you've done hard things before, so you know you can do hard things again in the future. And it's just raising that threshold of what is hard, how do we think about hard? And ultimately, as we do more hard things aren't as hard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it all is relative, right? Like hard, that bar of hard is always changing for sure. There was a time where I would have looked at 24 miles and thought, oh, that's going to be a hard run. But now I can look at 24 miles and think, oh, it's not going to be too bad, but I can push myself in it.
For sure. Okay, so you've had quite a year this year. You ran your way to the podium of the Olympic trials and then had a decent day in Paris. Um, I got to watch the Olympic trials marathon with your aunts, and they were just so proud of you about how confident you were and how you had your own game plan for the race, and ultimately it worked out. As someone who often goes out too fast and doesn't run my own race, I find that that's one of the best ways to have a good day. So maybe as we're in the thick of marathon season, what's your guidance for someone who's lining up for a marathon in regards to running your own race?
I will say there's a learning curve to it, right? Like I would say 2 years ago that Dakotah did not run her own race. She ran to be at the front of the pack no matter what that pace was. And it's been something that I've been learning more and more, that if you have confidence in your training and you know what you asked your body to do for the 12 weeks leading up to whatever marathon or race you're doing, you should go into race day and ask your body to just do the same thing that you've been asking it to do and not ask more of it. Because fitness isn't magic. It doesn't come from nowhere. Like whatever your fitness has shown on your long runs and in your big workouts is what's you're ready for on race day. So I think having just the confidence in that has been the big game changer for me. And talking to my coach beforehand and hearing what his opinion is of what I can do and listening to that, because I think when you're creating your own race plan, I think that can be really challenging because you're a little too close to the situation and you've got too much skin in the game. And just to talk through it with like an outside source who can look at it a little bit more broadly, a coach can give you just like better advice, I think.
For you, has it been repetitions, or was there a specific breakthrough that enabled you to find that confidence in ways you hadn't before?
I think I've just seen it from other elite athletes over and over who have been running really successfully. Somebody that comes to top of mind for me is Nell Rojas at Boston over and over. You don't see her necessarily sticking her nose in it. You don't see her pushing from the front, but then she runs a great race. Des is another one. She's somebody I look up to quite a bit, and she does the same thing. She goes out there, she knows what she's capable of, and she runs her own race. So I think just watching other women pull it off has been really big for me because it doesn't feel like you can do it until you see somebody else do it.
I think that's the whole point of it, right? Like we're seeing so much advancement in what's possible in women's running and men's running and just running in general. It's like the Roger Bannister effect, right? Someone does it, so then other people think that they can do it. What's it like to be a part of that at the forefront, where people are seeing you do things and they're like, oh, cool, I can do this too?
I think that's been like one of the most meaningful parts of my career is especially I get DMs on Instagram or have, younger athletes be like, I'm not very good right now, or I'm not making the state meet. I'm not a full ride scholarship athlete, but like watching what you did has given me hope that maybe someday I can. And I think that's like easily the most meaningful thing for me is I hope that I'm inspiring the athlete who's maybe not the very best, but just like has so much drive and loves the sport so much.
How do you respond to those types of people? What do you say?
I usually cry. I'm a pretty emotional person. Like even just talking about it just gets me really emotional because it feels like those days that I go out and I suffer and I don't want to run. Or maybe my Achilles hurts and I'm just kind of bummed out. It makes like all of those days worth it. I'll take the worst day of running if that means that I can inspire one little kid.
Do you think about that kind of stuff when you're out there on those 24-mile runs with no water?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to draw inspiration from somewhere and you have to have like a deep seated reason why you keep going and you call on all of those reasons for sure.